The materials you will need are a linoleum block, inking plate, brayer, ink, and paper. Start by making sure there are no carving scraps left on your block. These will mess up your prints. Then notice I have all my tools laid out on a piece of paper to protect the table from any stray ink marks. You need to begin by making sure everything is ready to go. All of your tools are handy so you don't have to stop in the middle of what you're doing to go get something. When you add the ink to the inking plate, you want to use as much ink as you would use toothpaste. Notice that is not very much. Too much is definitely a problem. Then you put your brayer in the ink and roll it around to evenly coat the brayer, not the inking plate. Notice that I do not even get close to the edges of the inking plate. My only goal here is to evenly coat my brayer, which is the rolling tool. Now I can roll the ink onto my block. You can go back and pick up more ink. You can roll your brayer in different directions to make sure it's fully coated, but you want to make sure it's nice and even across the whole entire surface of the block, and you should be able to tell. When you set the brayer back down, make sure the inked portion is in the inky part of the tray and the handle is not. Then notice there's a little extra ink around my linoleum block. Slide it over. Carefully position your paper on top of the block. Lower it once and only once, don't try to reposition, and give it a massage. You don't need to punch it. You don't need to put all of your weight on it. You just want to make sure that you have pressed firmly on every surface of the print without smearing. Then peel it up. You don't need to leave it for a certain amount of time. Mine has black marks from the Sharpie pen, so what I need to do is go wash off my block before I try to print it again. Now that my block has been washed, I need to make sure it's fully dry before I print it again. Any water sitting in those little grooves will mess up my prints. So make sure you dry your block very thoroughly with a paper towel to get it very, very dry before you print it. Then I have some marks that I need to recarve because I forgot to carve them in the first place. So that is the reason that you do a few test prints to go back and touch areas up. Now I'm ready to print again, but when I roll my brayer in my ink, it's dry. It's no longer sparkly and it doesn't make much of a sound, so I need to add more ink. Remember, add as much ink as you would have toothpaste on a toothbrush. Re-roll your brayer in it to evenly coat your brayer, not the inking plate. Then apply the ink to your block. Remember, you can go back and pick up more ink. You should roll in many different directions to make sure your block is well coated. Pay close attention to the edges. These are common areas that tend to get missed when you're applying ink to your block. Then put the brayer back in the tray with the inky side in the ink and the handle outside. Slide your block out of the mess and carefully lower the paper on top. Then give it a massage. Remember, you're not punching it and you are not putting all your weight on it. You are just rubbing it firmly to make sure it's well adhered to the paper. After each print is done, put it aside to dry and continue to produce more prints. Each time you use your ink, make sure that it is still wet enough. If it's not, add more ink to the inking plate. Continue making prints as long as you have the time to make prints and as long as I have assigned you to make prints.